Hi, everybody. Welcome to Maker Monday. I am Kris Bakke. I am the Customer Engagement Manager with Nasco. Of course, you logged in and are here on the Zoom. I'm excited because I have Kathi Hanson who will be logging in shortly. Of course, there's technical difficulties because technology hates Kris Bakke. I'm not kidding you. However, do not panic because she's working on it and she'll be in just a minute. And we have a little bit of rules to run by. They're not really rules. I'm just teasing you. But we are going to be giving away a class pack, Sketchmate class pack. I want to make sure I said it correctly. So I have the little card here. It's a class pack that includes the Factus erasers. It includes 3 different levels of graphite pencil. It includes charcoal pencils and a layout pencil. And then it also includes the little file paddle thing and a tortillon and sharpeners. So in order to be qualified for the giveaway, you have to be here at the end of the session or preferably watch the whole session, but we want you to put it in the chat. So it says that it's being recorded and you say, yes, I got it. Hopefully you've already done that. And then in the chat section, you are going to put your name and where you're from. And then we will randomly pick at the end. And I will announce the winner and then you'll send me an email and you'll be so happy and life will be good. So we are just waiting for Kathi to get in. And while she does that, let's just take a look where everybody's from. I got to get my chat box up here. Oh my gosh, all over the place. Texas and Illinois and New Jersey. Very good. Minnesota, excellent. Michelle from Humboldt, Saskatchewan. Is that Canada? That is fabulous. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That's where Jesus is from. I'm kidding. That's just fun. Michigan, Massachusetts. Awesome. Very good. So just some great information is that we have been doing business with General Pencil for a really long time. And it looks like Kathy's connecting now. And so General Pencil, whenever you purchase from them, they always have a packet of information. And when you open it up, hi, Kathi, I can see your screen. So that's looking good.
That's how we're leaving it.
All right. No, that is totally fine. And after you're done doing your part, we'll flip to your face at the end. But for right now, if you're comfortable, we'll do that. But I was just talking about your products. And Kathi is an artist with General Pencil, but they always have this fabulous informational sort of tutorial on how to draw with techniques and all kinds of good stuff. And then also stuff about the product. And the cool part about this is that we used to do some things called tear pads. And, you know, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel on the product. And so we partnered with General Pencil to create this product called a tear pad. Well, we've taken a lot of our resources out of our catalog because teachers want to spend their money on this stuff. And so everybody who got the email should have been able to click to download this. Do not panic if you didn't. There's also a second one on graphite techniques. While Kathi is doing her presentation and it's packed full, I will put those in the chat and you can download them as well. Otherwise, just grab some pencils, graphite pencils, charcoal pencils, and some paper, or watch diligently and then rewatch, because probably tomorrow, you'll get a follow-up email with the video attached. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathi Hanson, and she is going to start the presentation.
Well, nothing like not having a smooth start. Hi, everybody. I'm going to
Not
spend just a
even
few-
worry about that. I already told them that it's my fault because technology typically hates me.
Oh, it hates me too. I'm going to spend just a few minutes first talking about actual pencil tips. But then, guys, I want to show you, if you just think outside the box, so many cool marks you can make with whether it is a graphite or a charcoal pencil. I'm going to hop back and forth between both of them. Sometimes the obvious isn't obvious. I'm assuming, Kris, these are all our teachers, and the majority of them are. Yes, no? Okay, she's not answering. If you are.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was just on mute, the classic 2021 saying you're on mute.
Right. Is this mostly art teachers?
Yes, we have lots and lots of art teachers. If you are not an art teacher, type in where you're from and what you do.
Okie dokie. Well, whether you're an art teacher or an artist, some of the obvious isn't obvious. First of all, this single pencil can do a lot of awesome stuff if you really utilize everything it offers. For instance, 3 tips we always forget to share with the kids. A sharp point is going to make a very tight, distinguished line. You're going to have a rounded tip. That's usually what we use to fill in large areas. But even if we draw with it, look how much wider that line is going to be. Kris, let me know if I get out of range. I'm working off a tiny thing.
No, I'll definitely keep you on the straight and narrow. And I'm guessing that you're going to tell the difference between the 2 pencils, between graphite and charcoal. So, but keep going.
All right, and then there's your blunt tip, which you're going to fill in effortlessly larger areas. It's even going to be wider and darker. So right off the bat, 3 different width lines, 3 different values just by the tip you choose. I'm working with traditional charcoal right now. I'm going to be hopping back and forth between the graphite and the charcoal. Charcoals tends to show up better on the screen for you all. That's why I kind of started with it. Another thing is, what do we usually do when we're going to draw? Good old-fashioned handwriting position. Well, you only want that if you're working in tight, small areas. Look at the same mark it's going to make if you go back to where it says Made in the USA right here. That same line is going to be a little lighter, a little looser. Now let's go back to where it says charcoal. It's even going to be looser and lighter. Work your way further back. Can you see the difference? Right off the bat, I have 4 different widths. Some are loose, some are tight, and different values. Have everybody work off the entire length of a pencil. It is going to make such a difference. This is traditional charcoal, dry and dusting. Light touch, I'm getting a lighter value. Now I'll move it up a little bit more, layer some more in. It's going to get a little darker. Move up my tip even closer. It's going to be even darker and darker. That's a fun, easy way to get a lot of values with General's traditional charcoal. I also wanted to take a few seconds and show you their Euro blend charcoal. It can be used alone or in combination with the traditional. Now, this is creamier. The particles are ground finer. So when this pigment hits the paper, it instantly grabs on and impregnates it. And look at that bold, bold black. And even though that's dark, look when I laid this on top of it. It makes such a difference. And actually, this is cooler and that's warmer. Another fun thing you can do with this, because it is so creamy, is you are really going to be able to manipulate this a lot. This is a camel hair brush. Camel hair is inexpensive and it's very soft. It's like makeup brushes, guys. It will hold pigment if you load it, but also when you move pigment with it, it's not going to leave any hairlines. You're starting to see how you could really pop some values or suggestive movements just by loading this up and working it right on the paper. You can also draw background and then in the foreground, have foreground and branches in front of it. You see how right off the bat, we are giving some depth and illusion. I always call these,
Wow.
I call these springboard effects because when I was still teaching, nothing is scarier, or it was at least to my students, than a blank piece of paper. So I would say, let's get some of the background in right away and use that as a springboard for what we were going to do. Another.
Now, are you just using a brush, like a watercolor brush?
Actually, it's a camel hair brush, almost like a makeup brush. This actually is by Dynasty. It's an IPC2. But, you know, if you can't afford that, just a soft hair brush, just any kind of soft hair brush, acrylic brush. And I had just pretend this was another little piece of paper that I loaded that off of. Okay, traditional charcoal comes in HB2, B4, B6B. The Primo only comes in 3 degrees. It's HB, B, 3B. So almost like a hard, medium, soft. How you're going to alter that value again is the hand position that you are using to apply it. You know, the further back, less pigment's going to get on your paper. Talking about paper real fast though, ideally, all paper has a smooth side and a textured side. I use the textured side if I'm going to be doing things like, can you see the raised hills and valleys and all these gourds and everything? I wanted this to be a little textured, so I used the textured side of the paper. If I wanted smooth flowers, or for instance, this soft background, then I use the smooth side. Can you see these background branches that I used, that I put in with the brush, as well as that soft background? That's some of the ways that I instantly gave them that background to then work towards the foreground. Okay. Want you to notice this. Do you see how dark that chickadee's head is? No shine on that. General is the only company that makes a flat black matte graphite pencil. It's their Kimberly, it's the green one, Kimberly 9XXB. And look at this. This gives you flat black matte graphite. It really, really adds punch to a lot of your designs. Okay. Another thing, I digressed, but you're going to notice I'm good at that. We were talking about the Primo, right? 3 degrees, HBB 3B also comes in white. Yes, you could use your charcoal white, but this is more dry dusting. This is what we use over our regular orange charcoal. This is creamy, so it will stick easier to the very, very creamy Euro blend. Because it's so creamy, yes, you can use it on paper, but you can also use it. This is leather. So it does not require a lot of tooth. So, you know, be creative. It also goes over, it's a great mixed media tool, over acrylics, over gouache, over tempera, over inks. It will go over everything but oil paint. Okay. Do you notice some of these whites are a little bit brighter than the other whites? How you do that little fun trick, guys, is I always have 2 charcoal white pencils. One I flag, and one, this is my drawing one. This is my flag. Because what I'm about to do, you're really not supposed to do. I am going to soak this pencil tip in water for a few seconds. And the reason you're not supposed to do that is water's wicking up this core. So eventually it's going to weaken it to the point that every time you sharpen it, it's going to break. Might take a year for that to happen. But I am more than willing to give up a few of my pencils when you see what this does when you wet this. You see this bright white liquid opaque comes off this pencil. And what I did for this is first I did establish my dry whites, and then I came in just a few spots and popped the wet white on top of it. And it was great for this. It's awesome. Reflections in glass, a twinkle in the eye, something like that. But I always pulled this out only at the very end, because when this dries, it is permanent. There's no going back. So we always said for that bright white, final highlight on top of your work, you can wet your charcoal white pencil to get that cool effect. Want to give you another visual just to really, reinforce how dark this is. This is a black matte. This is that Primo in the background. So it is just an amazing, amazing pencil if you really want to get some dark, dark, darks in.
Very cool. And you have somebody that did, Bridget, says she took a workshop with you and loved the wetsuits.
Yeah. Tell her thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, now I'm going to switch over. Well, no, I'll stick with the charcoal for starters. Charcoal sticks, fat or skinny. Traditional charcoal is going to roll off. Primo charcoal is going to roll off. Look at the difference in this, like yummy, yummy, yummy stuff. But I don't just use it the way it comes out of the package. I broke it off and I was like, oh, I got some corners. Lots of times, now I'm going to switch to our semi-hex drawing. I'm going to be going back and forth because remember, all these techniques we can do either in graphite or charcoal. Let's say I was doing a desert where we had scruffy grass. It's very hard to get it. I'm moving it all angle. I'm trying to just make it look scruffy. That's what we always did, but we're working too hard. Let's see what this does just by letting all four corners connect with that paper. No rhyme or reason. Moving it up and down. Which one looks more interesting, more relaxed, and more dimensional? That or that? Then let's further develop it a little bit better. Sharpen the tip of your charcoal pencil. It's going to give you a wider line than your pencil core. So, this is such easy ways to add so much interest and value in something just by thinking outside the box a little bit, even with a stick. You can
Kathi, what do you sharpen it with?
My little red all art sharpener. And
you do. You stick the whole square thing just in there.
Watch, I'm just going to push it in a little bit and watch what's going to happen here. Never throw anything away, guys. Look at these shavings. What do you think I can do with them? And I'll show you in a little bit. Now, some I'll do real sharp, some I'll do a blunt tip, I'll do a rounded tip. I'm hoping your brains are just starting to tick a little bit. Every single.
And that sharpener is kind of an excellent sharpener.
You know what? You can't go wrong with it. Two things make a good sharpener. Look at me. I'm going, two things make a good sharpener. The type of the blade and the angle of the blade. General handcrafts all of their pencils and sticks. If you get a stick that looks a little killywampus, it's not straight, that's not a defect. They literally hand make them. That's how it dried. Where you see it stamped Primo or General, they hand stamp these things too, guys. It is amazing. And if you go to their website, they actually have some videos of in the factory where you can actually see things being made. That is so cool to watch and share. So again, digress. Two things make a good sharpener: type of blade, angle of the blade. Stainless steel German blade you want. This little guy will last a couple years easily. And then theirs blade is angled to give you this. Because the majority of their pencils are soft core, if you have a real long exposed tip, it's just going to almost break unless you really are back up on it and you have control of pressure. You really only want a small amount equally exposed all the way around. And whether it's a little handheld or the one in a canister, we also have ones for our fat and skinny pencils, like the 9XXB works great. You can really shove it in there, but it's really better to have a 2-hole diameter. Or this one, I call this one a Cadillac of sharpeners, because it has 3 different hole shapes, as well as you can really keep your colored pencils separate from the rest of your pencils if you want. You should never sharpen your graphite and your charcoal pencils with the same sharpener you are sharpening colored pencils, because first of all, those sharpeners are going to dull quicker from the wax that's coming off the pencils. But also, if you've got a little bit of wax build up on that blade and then you go put a charcoal pencil in it, you're transferring some of that wax to the charcoal. So you got to think of that too. Okay. So I have some of these. These are graphite particles. These are charcoal particles. I save my particles. I'll put them in little jars, or like right now, I just have it on the foil, and I'm going to show you why. Now all of a sudden I have particles to work with. Such an easy way to tone. This was an acrylic brush that should have been thrown away a long time ago. The chisel edge is totally gone, but man, this is a great pouncer now. Never throw anything out, because you can pounce. And if you mix up how light or dark, you are going to get several values in. Now I pounce this way, but what else do you think I could have used this on? I used to hand draw all my lace. Was in the store and said, wow, I really like that lace pattern. Why am I working so hard? So I'm going to lay it down. And remember, I loaded this up. I'm just going to, if I want it soft, I swirl. If I want more than one value, I'm going to pounce, and I'm going to use different pressures to get different values. And if I want the edge super soft, then I am going to rouge it out with this cotton ball. Now all of a sudden, we have a template to work with. Again, that's Springboard again. Now, the ES20 Extra Soft White Vinyl Eraser, as you will be able to see right here, effortlessly will remove pigment. You know, if it instantly removes all that pigment in one swipe, it is a good eraser. But you can also use this kind of like a kneaded. So if with a light touch, it's barely going to lift, more pressure, it's going to lift more. How about something like this in the background? Tone your paper and put something like this as your background, and then draw on top of it. It's just going to add subtle interest. In the same breath, now I've got some on here, it would transfer to your paper. I'm going to get back over here. I got it darker than I wanted. All you got to do, remember, just lift up a little bit, and you can lighten certain areas of a design. Now I had too much on it. It actually turned around and put more down. Normally when it's clean, because it's self-cleaning, it will just lift. So I'm going to do another one right here. Can you see how I'm starting to get that brick wall pattern? Can you see that, Kris?
Yeah, it looks, I'm in amazement right now. That is so stinking cool.
Okay,
Something
now
I feel like I can actually do myself too.
Now I put some of it on here. So I loaded some of it on my brush. And now let's try stamping that way. Look. Woo-hoo-hoo. This is my springboard for them. Okay, here is we've got our fence wall in. Now let's further develop it. Come back with that pencil tip. Maybe this area needs a little more in there, or you want to darken it, or really make a nice separation mark somewhere. Do you see how you've got that great shape to build off of? And that is so much more interesting because they're all different widths, size, and values. Whereas if I did pointillism, it's tighter. Which one is more interesting to look at. I call these the unexpected marks, the happy accidents, what makes the viewer linger longer in an area because they're trying to figure out how you did it because they're thinking you just did it with the pencil tip. Another thing, now this is all loaded, what would happen if I kind of turned it a little bit to try to get that excess off? That almost right there, I'm like, oh, that looks like a little fish head. You know, I'm always playing around and seeing what kind of mark it's going to leave and what I can, if I like it, I remember, oh, next time I want to do something like that, this is what I'm going to do. So now this is super dirty. So now I'm going to clean it. I was going to talk a little bit more about papers and all this stuff, but I kind of jumped in. But I do want to say one more thing about paper. I said smooth side and textured side. Also, all these things I'm showing you, you want a paper where the pigment wants to nicely sit on top of the paper. Sometimes you get paper where it just goes, it just sucks it in and you're trying to blend it and it just won't move. It's that paper is not going to lend itself to a lot of things like this. So it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. It's got to be a paper that doesn't suck up your pigment. Okay. I'm going to pull out a sanding paddle now that I do.
Is there a certain poundage of paper that you would suggest?
No, I mean, pencil art techniques, you know, as teachers, lots of times we can't afford good paper. I will tell you, sometimes for techniques like this, copy paper will work.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I was shocked. Copy paper will even work. No, poundage isn't that important. Well, of course, the more poundage, the sturdier it's going to be. We have an eraser reference sheet. And I tell you, this is worth its weight in gold. When I really originally started this for teachers and I showed General Pencil what I explained to them and they go, we need to make this as a sheet because it talks about from kneaded, I mean, all the different erasers, what they're made of, the benefits of using that particular one, but also the mediums they are meant to erase and the surfaces that they will effortlessly erase on. So
Kathi,
I don't know.
Do you have that on your website?
No, I don't even know
Does
if
General have it on theirs?
We will. The best thing I was going to do for starters is if you will put my email address up in the bar, all they got to do is email me and I just send them off a PDF.
I will do it.
Okay.
Also, too, we're at about halfway point. We have about a half an hour left.
I know. I am hopping.
Time flies.
Yes, when you're having fun. Now I'm going to grab a sanding paddle because I'm going to grate larger pigment particles. Now, the softer the pigment or the softer the pencil, the pigment particles aren't going to be as dense. So if I use like an HB or a 2B, my particles are going to be a little firmer. So I'm doing that right now. It's not going to be as soft as that lace was. This is where my goal today is just to get you start questioning and thinking. Piece of cotton ball. I'm going to pretend I'm twisting off a bottle cap motion because it's soft. It's going to give me a very soft pattern. Can you see that? What does that look like? Can you see how you can get movement just with some particles and a cotton ball? Now I'm going to take that ES20, still soft, but denser than the cotton ball. And I'm going to do that same mark. Look at the difference. Isn't that cool? And again, this is loaded. So let's maybe use that as a pattern, even for a black and white, or let's just erase it and keep on going. This is what I mean by, I love extracting. Cool. I love extracting. Some of it, do you see how this is a perfect example using the right eraser on the right pigment. Look how bright these are. If you use one that isn't the most compatible, it's going to erase, but you see how we have all these different values? But we always concentrate on as we go back in the background, the values are softer. We never think highlighting the same way. If you have a lot of whites in a design, your foreground white should be at much brighter than your background lights. And you can get that by switching up the eraser you used in the area. But again, look at this. Can you see part of a just barely lifting out with that ES20? What a cool little pattern you could make. You can do so much with an eraser besides remove a mistake. Okay. I usually try to show a visual. Remember my lace? Here's the lace in action. Okay. These we blocked in and subtracted out. Lace we pounced in with the powder. Foreground was actual pencil tip. Notice a little bit of that 9XX in a few areas, just a pop in it, right? You can also do things with your powders like templates. I'm kind of in a hurry, so I'm going to start just putting it in real fast. Again, how light or dark is going to be how much pressure you put in an area. You even want more than one value when you're doing something like this. It will make it more dimensional and interesting. See that right off the bat? Here is an example of a background. That was a stencil. Can you see this or no?
Yes, you're doing good.
Okay. Just trying to make things interesting. Here is a great example of your erasers in work or in action. I toned this. Do you notice the different values extracted just by creating the shape by subtracting pigment? So, the more you know about your tools, the more things you can do with your tools. Here is, I'm a dumpster diver by heart, always looking for a pattern within the shape of something or an element. This is drywall tape, guys. So load this up again. Again, these particles are going to give texture. The real fine graded ones off the softer pencils are just going to give values. And again, I'm going to show you more than one value just by how much and where you apply a little more pressure. Is it, something doesn't have to scream at you to be interesting. That's what I used to always tell everybody. And again, by itself, that's a cool pattern or a pattern on top of a pattern. It's not something somebody's going to notice right away, but then all of a sudden they're going to go, oh my God, there's squares and checks in that area right there. How cool is that? The objective is you want people really stop and look.
That is awesome.
And question. Now, another cool thing you can do, I found this. I don't know if it's going to show up. Do you see all these fibers in here? It's like, man, wouldn't that be cool if I could transfer these fibers? So what you do is you're going to lay it down and take all your, you could actually use jar powder too, but man, leaving powder in the classroom sometimes is scary. So I have much more, I feel I have much more control. I think it's a site when I just grate a little bit here and there. So now I'm going to turn it over fiber side down and I am going to burnish it. And how I do that is I just take a good old fashioned tablespoon or a soup spoon and I just start rubbing. And this is how I transfer that pigment onto the paper. And look at what that did. Can you guys see it?
Very cool.
Now,
I just typed in, wow, printmaking and drawing. Who knew?
Yeah. Why I first did this was I had a bunch of background trees. And when I softly put in the background, no matter how far back I worked up on that pencil and was trying to draw those hit and miss tree limbs, they were too distinct for the background. Doesn't this look like it's way in the background? All those hit and miss little tree lines. And here is that one in action. Can you see all those loose ones way in the background there?
Wow.
That was done with that little piece of paper. This is a great one to give examples. Pencil tip for distinct lines, rocking those stick corners when I wanted it nice and loose. Okay.
Very cool. Janet says these are wonderful, and Stephanie says amazing with a really cute
Yay!
emoji.
Yay. Thank you guys. You're making my day. All right, let's do another one here. I'm going to make 2 lines. This is how you can establish a nice springboard for a tree. So let's say we got a palm tree. Look at a tortilla. You've got all these little paper ridge lines. Don't you think this is a great way to start establishing a tree trunk to work off of?
Yeah.
And then you're going to come in with the pencil tip, more, build off of it. You see what I mean? Now,
Yes.
You can take a credit card, a room key, whatever. Now that same pressure, but the way you handle it and the surface area that's making contact is going to give a total different type of pattern right off the bat.
Oh, very birch-like.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing I wanted to share with you the most was start looking around the house. What do I have? What could I try? There are so many kinds of cool specialty papers out there. And what I always do is I actually go in the back and say, do you have any papers that are torn or whatever? And, they can't sell them, but man, they will give them to you for a song. And you can utilize these by themselves or mixed media or backgrounds.
Oh, neat.
I mean, doesn't that just draw your eye in? Now, sadly, we have all these cool marks, but if my hand goes over, what are they going to do? They're going to smear. So lots of times I don't have the option of spray fixative yet. And I don't like to use hairspray because sometimes it stains the paper. So here, this is probably the best trick of the day. Good old fashioned tissue paper. It's cheap now, and it tends to have a shiny side and a dull absorbent side. You put that dull absorbent side down, and where'd my spoon go? I am going to burnish it again. All a smear is the excess pigment sitting on top of the paper that has nowhere to go. So by taking this tissue paper and rubbing it with the spoon, I am pushing the particles in the paper. When the paper hits saturation and can't accept anymore, the tissue paper does. Won't smear now, guys. Can you see that? And sometimes
that is quite the hack.
Well, how I had to figure that out was way back here. Do you see the stain marks on my leather?
Yep.
I started to put spray fixative and it was staining it. So I'm like, weird brain, just like you. I'm like, what did Michelangelo do when there wasn't spray fixatives? I'm like, oh my God, none of us are utilizing burnishing. This is crazy. Why not? So, and another thing that's really cool about it, let me get one of these down.
You're getting lots of great ideas and so helpful, and top hack number 1. Also, Bridget wants you to, she thinks you used alcohol one other time before, but keep going, okay. And I know you'll get to it.
Okay, now, another thing you could do is there's your design. This is in the foreground. Oh, am I doing the right side? I think so, yeah. So I'm going to burnish this. There's my excess. So let's say we wanted to repeat this way in the background. Transfer it back. And then what's left on the tissue paper, I never throw my tissue papers out. because I can look at that. Foreground, way in the back, same design, don't have to recreate it. And I save all these papers and use them for collaging because then I'm going to have these bizarre, fun little background things right on my paper. You know, never throw anything away. Keep reusing it. What else? Talked a little bit about templates, y'all know. I am going to switch over to wet techniques since she wants them. Now, if you pencils can even sometimes, I mean, they're great for mixed media boards, even your gesso boards at time, canvases, play around and see. Pencils can go over a lot of previous layers. This started out watercolor pencil with pastel accents. I've got inks. I've got raised modeling paste designs, charcoal. They go over, your pencils will go over almost anything, guys. So, don't limit yourself to just drawing with them. As for working with them wet, if you are working on a paper that can handle moisture, any odorless terp will, now, all these things I'm showing you, you can do with generals, graphite pencils, charcoal pencils. I can't guarantee it with other pencils because I know how far I can push the pigment and the binder ratio. So getting back to that, on generals pencils, you can use any odorless terp. However, if you are working on a paper that instantly is going to buckle, very, very lightweight, will not handle moisture, then what you use, this took a long time to figure out. And I can't even take credit for it. My girlfriend, who's a nurse, was sitting here watching me fail at everything I was trying to use. And she said, "What are you trying to accomplish, girl?" And I said, "I want it to dissolve it, but I don't want my paper to be too wet." And she said, "Well, rubbing alcohol. It will keep this liquid enough for me to load my brush or whatever and transfer it, and then it evaporates. So it will not buckle your paper." Now I just sort of like separated these hairs. Couldn't you see this as a very soft background? Again, starting to build up a tree or wood or, a barn or a fence or something. I got super excited when I knew it worked. So then I'm like, what else? What else? Well, cheap tin foil. Can you guys see the cool pattern? It's like elephant skin, or leather or something. So I'm going to load up and then I'm going to lay it down. Press. Look at that, Mark. You better all be going, ooh,
yes, that is so cool.
Woohoo! And then what about bubble wrap?
Oh, yep.
I'm thinking, anything.
We have about
I
14 minutes.
Yep, I can even utilize this with stamps and things, guys. But what I'll clean my stamps with is with my Kiss Off then. I do not like to use ink removers on a lot of my stamps because it's harsh and it dries the leather out, and pretty soon I'll start, or the rubber out, and then it's going to start cracking and I won't get crisp. You just take your Kiss Off stain remover, wet it, rub a little bit on it, and it'll effortlessly take inks, paint, whatever off your rubber templates and not dry them out. Okay. So now, what do you think about cheesecloth? I mean, seriously, my whole family laughs. I'm like the mad scientist here.
Well, it is a little bit steamy. I'm telling you that way. A lot of experimenting here.
Yes, but that's a good thing, right? So now I'm going to wet my cheesecloth. If you have a lot of rubbing alcohol and only a little bit of the powder graphite or charcoal, you might not have to burnish it because there's not that much. Now, if you go fast, almost looks like tire tracks, right? If you lay it down, put something over it and try to repeat the string pattern, every time I do that, I seal it. It never fails. I just spilt my rubbing alcohol. So now press down, lift up, and you're going to get your string pattern.
Neat.
So again, if there's only a little bit on the paper, you're fine. If there's a lot, it might smear a little bit because there was no pressure when we applied this. Really, we stroked it on with a brush, so it didn't get to embed in the paper. So just turn around and take your spray or your tissue paper. Okay. This is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. There are so many other things we can do. I have some cool videos. General, again, go to their website, go to Nasco's. They both have great education videos for you all to look at. I'm going to start putting more of them on my Facebook. I'm going to do, I'm just going to try to do some fun little things. Hubby had bad health for a year. I've been very bad with Instagram and Facebook, but I'm jumping back on that wagon now that he's doing better. And I hope you visit him because I'm going to be doing a bunch of fun little tips and tricks like this. To end this, I want 2 seconds with our water-soluble graphite, just because I don't think y'all know that you can use this by yourself, or you can get your first few values in and then come back with your graphite pencils or your graphite sticks and develop it more. So you can get a lot done in less time. If you want to really draw a crisp outline, use an HB pencil very lightly, or a 2H. If you want to draw right with this, all you got to remember is to give yourself some hit and miss lines, because if I drew this entire thing in, when I wet it, it's going to be the same value all the way around. It's going to flatten that puppy right out. I am right now just trying to establish 2 values. The white of the paper is going to be my first value. This is going to be probably my middle value. I hate to say middle value because you're going to see when this hits the water, it's going to create even a few more additional values. So we're just trying to get a nice
Even
range.
though it's pip.
Now watch. I am going to wet the white first. That's what's going to give me more values. I'm going to set this brush down and not lift it up till all those lines dissolve. See how I'm getting even lighter values?
Wow.
If you get too much on your brush, touch it to your paper towel. So then that's a way you can get a lighter value. Now we're going to come up here. You do not have to dissolve all the lines. I'm going to leave a few of them showing here at the top, because don't pears have spots in them sometimes, little dots and
Yes.
stuff? So I just wanted to show you how instantly you can establish so many values. And while it's still wet, clean it up if you want. Now,
That is just amazing.
If you draw on the paper when it's dry, you're going to get softer marks. If you draw on it when it's wet, look how instantly dark and bold that is. Because again,
Wow.
that water is dissolving this. Okay. Once it dries, if it's lighter than you wanted it to be, well, then you can just come right back in and give it a second layer wherever you wanted it darker. I'm just going to move real fast for this because I want to show you one more thing.
Well, Kathy's doing that. Last chance to get your name in for the drawing.
When it dries, remember it's permanent. So you can either go back with your pencils and with your dry traditional graphite and further build, but look how watercolor pencil, pastel on top of the watercolor. If you
And
use the
you
Kimberly
are using watercolor paper for that technique, correct?
Yes, but you could also do mixed media. Okay, just anything that's
Very
going to
good.
lend itself to a little bit of moisture. Because remember, when you're working with General's Kimberly watercolor pencils, artist grade pigment, they work because they're semi-transparent. The gray tones are allowed to filter through. Look how little water I need to activate this. A lot different than pan or tube. Can you see that? This paper is not that wet. So it's knowing your surface. Am I better with watercolor pencil, blah, blah, blah. You know, all kinds of good stuff. And like I said, maybe down the road, we'll do a whole one on pencils with color techniques. I want to end last but not least with this fun little thing that everybody always wants to see. I'm going to show you how you can create a birch tree in just a few seconds. And when you do it, your kids will just get on their knees and bow down and say, you are the goddess of art. It's quite impressive to them. All right.
Hopefully they're already saying that.
Yeah, well, you know, there's always one in every class, right? So we will win them all over. Make your tree trunk with water. Pick up your sanding paddle again. Hold it over it, and I'm going to grate some of those particles right in this tree. If it's super wet, the particles are going to wick out more. This one I left kind of stationary for you to see. Doesn't matter where you put them, only sticks where it finds moisture. Now leave it alone. That in itself is cool. Or while it's wet, take all the water out of the brush, pinch the belly, lightly make contact. We don't want to push the particles into the paper. We want to drag them across that paper.
Very cool.
Okay, now I got a little bit in that brush, so in a few hit and miss spots.
Kathy's another Kathy on who's watching says, you are the goddess of art.
Tell her I will pay her later. Thank you. Okay, now this should be your first clue. What do you think I'm going to do with this? I got a flag on it. I'm going to wet this one, and I'm going to show you why. With my dry one, if I set it in there and pull it up, the knot's going to be there. But do you see how it's too stark, white to dark?
Mhm.
By wetting it, watch what happens when I set it down. I set it in there. It's not only going to be dark, but more values are going to pop up around it.
Ah,
Isn't that cool? So again, I only do this with a few of them. And I just think it adds that extra interest, you know, for them to want to linger in your work. Now, let's say you wanted super dark marks or super dark limbs. Draw with it when it is wet. Look at how bold this is going to be. Super bold. If you want them softer or textured, then you are going to draw that limb with a dry pencil. And what's great, remember, I can dissolve all the lines or I can leave some of them. So this is a way to get several values as well as texture. And you would want texture in I'm going to lift this up. Can you see how only where I touch it, it gets darker? Cody?
yes.
Kinda.
Kathy, in like 1 minute, we need you, I want you to turn it to your face too, because we all need to see the beautiful mastermind
Okay.
behind
Can
all of
I
these
say,
amazing
hey guys,
techniques.
guys, can I say thank you so much for joining me? Oh, I missed it. Darn it. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining me. I just missed the mail, doctor. Urgh.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm so sorry. If you need to scoot off and call back, you do that because that's important. Everybody has been saying this is so wonderful and this is cool. Kathy, you can sign off because what you need to do is important and we will draw the winner. So thank you very much for being here. You sign off.
Okay, also guys, seriously, any questions? My email is right there. Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for spending an hour with me. I so love to teach. And because of events like
lots of thank yous coming across.
Let's give a big thank you to Nasco, because if it wasn't for Kris made all this happen. And I hope to see you down the road. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Kris, so much.
Bye, Kathy. And our winner today is Christy Buchanan from Roanoke, Virginia. And so Christy, you can email me and send me your address. And I will get you your giveaway. Thanks everybody so much for coming. If you have any questions, you can email either Kathi, her email's in the chat, or email me. I'm happy to make the connection. Kathi is fabulous to work on. Unfortunately, her husband is having some issues, and so for her to spend time with us today was really over the top, and I'm so grateful to have her. There are handouts. If you scroll back in the chat, there's 2 handouts, one on graphite pencils and one on charcoal pencils. If you miss it, then you can email me. I am at kbakke@nascoeducation.com. Send me the email. I'm happy to send you the handouts. They are also available on Nasco Educate, which is a platform that we have, and you can get a 2-week free subscription by just registering for requesting an account. If we do not have any more questions, I say thank you so much for joining us. Next month, November, is going to be fundraising with bowls. So come back and visit us for the November Maker Monday. Our guest is Karen Crosby, and she is going to talk through how they did a community event similar to Empty Bowls, but Empty Bowls is very specific, and this is a little bit different. So come back and join us. We should have that email out to you shortly. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.